Kartik Krishnaiyer here for the Florida Soccer Report on Beyond the 90. We're going to be talking a little bit more today about the continued stumbles of the Tampa Bay Rowdies. And let me just preface these remarks by saying, historically, as a reporter, not as as someone who's worked for clubs, but as a reporter, I've never had to cover. I've rarely had to cover a team that was this uncompetitive. The only time I can remember was for a portion of the 2015 spring season in the NASL. I had to cover Fort Lauderdale, who was very poor under Marcelo Nevilev. And that was the only season, by the way, where I wasn't either working for Fort Lauderdale or for the NASL during the 7-year history of the Fort Lauderdale Strikers. That version of the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, if you include the 2010 season when they were still playing under the name Miami FC, but everyone knew that they were going to change to the Strikers name in 2011 and also had already relocated to Fort Lauderdale. So, and that was corrected by a coaching change. And then in the fall season in 2015, Fort Lauderdale takes off under Gunther Kronsteiner. They're as good as anyone in the league. Kronsteiner had led them to within a missed penalty of winning the NASL title the previous season. And Fort Lauderdale, if anything, was even better at the end of 2015. And really controversial call in New York, against the Cosmos in the NASL semifinal, eliminated the Strikers that year. But that's my experience with covering a team that's playing like this. So last season, let me address last season with Miami FC, because some of you might say, well, what about Miami FC last season? Well, by the time Miami FC became consistently uncompetitive in matches, I had already been brought back into the organization. So I covered the team for the first month of the season when the losses to Charleston and Sacramento looked quite good. And even in that Sacramento game, I would still argue Miami was the better team. And had a close shave match against Lou City also, if I remember correctly. And then I was brought into the organization and we began to slide. We were losing anyway before that. But that gets me to my point about the Rowdies now. So Robbie Nielsen was sacked after 4 matches, all of which were away matches. He didn't have a match in the Open Cup. He didn't have a match in the Jägermeister Cup. In those 4 matches, you had a match in Las Vegas where the game was lost on a goalkeeping error and the Rowdies were the better team. And that's probably the best the Rowdies have looked all season, was that Las Vegas match. Match in Tulsa where they were bad. They were terrible in that match. Match against Miami FC where they won because Miami FC missed a penalty, but still they were able to come from a goal down, get 2 goals, and then see out the match after Miami FC had missed that penalty, right? And Nielsen very wisely, and this is something I want to point out about that match, the only match the Rowdies have won this season in any competition. Nielsen made a bunch of substitutions to just lock things down after that missed penalty. And then he loses in Charleston on what I think was a horrible call, a penalty call on Blake Bodley, where I still believe he may not have made contact with Hosu, the right back who was surging forward for Charleston. So he gets sacked after that. What has happened since the Tampa Bay? They've had 5 home matches in the USL Championship. They have 1 point from those 5 home matches. And that 1 point came in a match where they were shelled and they were second best, but Birmingham missed a bunch of good chances. Kempisi made 3 really good saves. And Pacifique Nyangabari saved the Rowdies with a one-man effort at the end of the match to score an equalizer. The other 4 home matches have been poor. Okay, so you had the Loudon match where they were second best the whole time, the Lou City match where they were good for 60 minutes, but then those last 30 minutes were so bad that they deserved to lose. And then you had the Charleston match that speaks for itself. The first 30 minutes of that match, as bad as any team has looked in the USL Championship this season. And then you had Rhode Island yesterday, which we're going to get to in a minute. In between that, you had a 5-0 loss to Orlando City in the Open Cup, an embarrassing performance, and something that I think was really hard for the supporters. I mean, that's the thing that really bothers me. The Rowdy supporters don't get to play Orlando very much anymore, and the one chance they get to bring them into Al Lang, that's how you perform. And then the Miami FC Jägermeister Cup match where Tampa Bay looked like their old selves in the first half, scored 3 goals, And the second half were horrible. I mean, to the point where Miami should have scored 4 or 5 goals. They scored 3, got the pens, and won. So let's talk about last night. Let's talk about Rhode Island. I have spent 5 minutes already extolling the pain of the season already. So let's talk about Rhode Island. For about 20 minutes, the Rowdies were really good. I like the idea of starting Endry Mustali up top. He's showing a lot, although he had one really good chance, and when that chance didn't land, like maybe you expect a young player to be, his head kind of stooped. He wasn't really into the match after that. Ali Bassett started the match really well. I liked his play, his interplay with Blake Bodley on the left, although I don't know why Steve Coleman's persisting with Blake Bodley as a left back in a 4-man back line. Left wing back, yes. Left midfielder, yes. One of the best in the USL Championship. I maintain that in spite of recent form. Recent form I put down to the tactics and to the lack of availability of several players. So again, Lewis Hilton hurt. Nick Moon played last night, so that was a positive. Leo Fernandez, I think, was the best player on the pitch and played 90 minutes yesterday. So that's all very encouraging. When you have Leo Fernandez, the signature player of not only the Rowdies currently, but the Rowdies USL Championship era, him along with some of the other guys, Forrest Lasso, Lewis Hilton, some guys that are gone now. One of them would be Jan Ekra, who's on the bench, who's coaching. That's all very positive. So what did we not like? Okay, so I don't think Passy has quite got into the game playing on the right side of it looked like more on the right side of midfield than on the attack. And maybe that was just the way they were pinned back after minute 20. I didn't like the midfield's inability to close down space, which led to 3 long-range efforts being goals. Campisi couldn't do anything about any of those 3 shots. Zach Harivu, a player that the Rowdies ill-advisedly sold last season in the middle of the season. Maybe that's when all of this started, right? Was when Harivu was sold and Charlie Dennis was sold. Now, the sale of Charlie Dennis, I tended to agree with after hearing the logic about it. I didn't like it at the time. I heard, look, Phoenix wanted him badly. He was out of contract at the end of the season. He didn't really fit in Robbie Nielsen's system, but I think when you're looking at the lack of depth of the Rowdies team now, particularly in attacking positions, you're thinking, okay, well, that might have been a guy you wanted to keep. Maybe if you couldn't re-sign him, maybe it makes sense. But Harivu, I don't know why he was sold to Rhode Island, and obviously he made the Rowdies pay last night. Let's have a conversation about Lawrence White, because Lawrence White finally got sent off in a match. I think should have been sent off in that first match against Las Vegas. So when I'm saying that was the Rowdies' best performance of the season, I also have to put an asterisk that White probably should have been off after 30 minutes in that match. The match in Naples that I saw at Open Cup when I was in Naples for that match, White got a yellow card within 3 minutes and should have had a second yellow. I think the referee made it clear, another one of these, you're off. Steve Coleman very wisely pulls him off at halftime. If he doesn't, he gets a second yellow. The Rowdies are out of the Open Cup at that point, especially considering how much they were battered in that match. You can imagine if they were down to 10 men. The match against Charleston last week, I don't know how he didn't get sent off. Wouldn't have made a difference, obviously. And then this match. He is a player that was part of some of the better Rowdies teams, went to Phoenix, and something happened. He's not the same player. Aaron Guillen, another longtime servant of the club, another one of those classic Rowdies players. He's just way off. He's just way, way off. So I thought maybe moving him back inside to center back would solve it. The pairing with Forrest Lasso, comfortable pairing. Forrest played well again last night. Guillen did not. Guillen was really poor. The midfield, Crisostomo is seeing different partners every week. Maybe when Hilton is fully fit or Cammy McPherson is back. I don't have an update on him. I saw him get hurt in person. He hasn't made an appearance since. He tried to go in the Birmingham game and was a late scratch. Haven't seen or heard from him yet since. So that's another concern. Just in general, at this point, Tampa Bay looks discombobulated, and there are still so. Let's talk about my experience with Miami FC last season, because right now the Rowdies feel every bit as uncompetitive, match to match. There'll be these 10 or 15-minute spells when they look good, which was always the talking point internally at Miami FC last season. I'll admit, we would say, we look good for 45 minutes against Loudoun. We look good for 30 minutes in Charleston, right? That would always be the talking point after 2-0 and 3-0 defeats. Was, we really looked good for a while in that match. North Carolina game, I remember, was a classic one. We lost 4-1. We were up 1-0. Late into the first half, and it was like, we really played well for 45 minutes. But this Tampa Bay team is taking on the same air where, last night they really played well for 20 minutes. After Charleston basically shut up shop a week and a half ago, or 8 days ago, the Rowdies really played well after minute 60. They really fought. In the Miami FC game, they really played well in the first half, even though the second half was an unmitigated disaster. Lou City game, we really played well until minute 60. Okay, so this is the same pattern of excuses as I was part of, quite frankly, with Miami FC last year. And it's not going to cut it, especially when you consider the Rowdies are not a team operating on a shoestring budget in terms of their players. There are a lot of injuries. There must be something else going on internally because, again, I don't understand the sacking of Robbie Nielsen. And we questioned it at the time. James Knowles and I on the Florida Soccer Report questioned it. And now the evidence is the Rowdies have played 7 matches. Rowdies have not left the west coast of Florida since Robbie Nielsen was sacked. They played 8 matches total in all competitions and have 3 points. If you count the 2 cup matches, the Naples match where they were totally outplayed, and the Miami match where they ended up losing on penalties. Just count those as draws because that's what I like to do. Cup matches that end in penalties don't affect my thought of the result. So they have 3 points in 8 matches. 7 of those matches have been at Al Lang Stadium. So there is something obviously wrong. And you could say, Hilton is hurt and Moon was hurt and obviously, Fernandez is coming back from injury, and Lasso's coming back from injury. McPherson's now hurt. But these are all kind of excuses. Everybody has injuries in the league. And you're talking about a team with Manuel Arteaga. You're talking about a team with Forrest Lasso, Leo Fernandez, Lewis Hilton. Okay, he's been hurt this whole time. Chris Ostemo, who I think is still one of the best central midfielders, at least talent-wise, in the USL Championship. Blake Bodley, who I have consistently rated as one of the best left-sided players in the USL Championship. Rubens Pacius, who can score, right? And we've seen that from him. Actually, he came the closest to scoring last night of the Rowdies. So I said he wasn't as effective on the right side, but he did come close to scoring last night. And you have the elements there. Wyke is a veteran. Guillen is a veteran. Castellanos is a guy who started in MLS. I really am running out of... So this squad is not... If you look on paper, even with the injuries, this squad is badly underperforming. They're not like Miami FC last season. When you looked at the squad, you said it's really a League One team, right? And I hold my hand up. I was part of that squad, part of that team, right? We really look like a League One team in terms of squad construction. This team does not look like it. In fact, this shows maybe how out to lunch I am at times. I picked this team to finish 3rd in the Eastern Conference behind Lou City and Charleston based on the personnel on paper. Now, granted, a lot of those guys have been hurt at various times, but you don't even see the effort, is my point. You don't even see the commitment beyond one thing goes wrong in a match and it's done, right? Lou City match, one thing goes wrong, right? A shot hits the post and then, and by the way, Tampa Bay's goal was on a deflection in that match, but one thing goes wrong and then the heads go down. So there's something really wrong internally. That's what I have to say. The analysis of the match is just like the analysis of every other match. Maybe the most notable analysis specific to this match is Wyke's indiscipline finally caught up with him, and that Guillen was no better as a center back than he's been as a left back. And there wasn't the closing down of space in midfield. But it's just more of the same, and I really don't know. I really don't know what to say anymore, because the other thing about this is one thing that makes it different than Miami FC last season, beyond the fact that Miami FC had a much lower payroll and the squad probably got the results they deserved, right? Based on squad construction. These results for Tampa Bay are consistently happening at Al Lang. These performances are consistently happening and Al Lang in the 50th anniversary season of the club. So what I think maybe can solve it, or partly solve it, is getting away from Al Lang, going to Lexington this week. Maybe they'll play better against Lou City in Louisville in a few weeks than they did at home in those last 30 minutes. Tampa Bay has a history of beating Lou City. No club has beaten Lou City as much in the USL Championship the last 6 seasons. Throw this season out, the last 5 seasons, as the Rowdies have. Maybe that's how they get well. I don't know. I don't know, because it's just I feel like I'm being very negative, but I'm seeing things that beyond just the constant losses that are really worrying me, and it's un-Rowdies like, right? That's the other thing. For Miami FC last season, it's like, okay, well, this is Miami FC, right? This is what you come to expect. From other sides, people who cover Hartford, maybe that's the way they view it. Maybe people who covered back in our NASL days, people who covered the Atlanta Silverbacks, although there were some brief periods of brilliance under Eric Ronaldo and Brian Haynes. But maybe that's what you come to expect, is some degree of futility. But this is just shocking from a side that I remind everybody was just an unlucky bounce 2 seasons away from winning the Players' Shield, being the best team in the regular season in the USL Championship. Now sit at the foot of the table behind Hartford, 24th in any metric you look at in the league, and has had the majority of their games at home now, and has 1 point in 5 home matches in the league. So I could go on and on. There's no point. But hopefully things get better this week against Lexington.